Your resume is written for where you want to go, not where you've been. You use where you've been to paint a picture, create a story, a narrative, whatever you want to call it, a marketability, so someone is enticed that you can help them solve their problem. I do that with you by showing you my job searching approach, the people I've helped, how I've helped them, right? So that you can draw conclusions about whether I might be able to help you or whether you want to come to my shows on Thursday or invest in my programs or whatever it might be. I show you how I've helped people to develop in their careers, same kind of thing. What you're doing with your resume in a cold nature is you are expressing to somebody, here's how I can help you. If your focus is on, here's me in all my glory and what I've done, that doesn't sell because people don't buy features, they buy transformation. How many people, you take your phone, you swipe through Instagram, you want to get healthy, right? You see the body with the beautiful abs, and you want to buy that person's book, you want to buy their training program, their app, or sign them up as your training coach or your strength training coach or your dietitian or whatever. What are you buying? You are not buying their program. You are buying those abs, right? You're buying the transformation. You are buying a future you. That's what you buy, right? You don't, at that moment, that impulse, you are not thinking about the 2 hours of working out that you're going to have to do day in and day out and what your kitchen cupboards or cabinets or refrigerator is going to look like now. It's going to be totally different. And then there's a regiment to it. But what you're buying is the future you. You're buying the transformation. Employers are the same way. And the problem is you, as a job candidate, go into interviews and what do you want to do? You want to regale them with how you're awesome and all the skills you have and where you went to school and that you have an MBA and that you took this certification training and that you're PMP certified. I don't care. No one cares about that. That's not what I'm buying. I'm not buying your knowledge. I'm buying the application of what you're going to do with that knowledge in my environment to change my life. That's what I'm buying. So if you can't explain to me how you're going to do that, I'm not going to hire you. But that's what you do. Just like you want to put all your history on your resume and you can't get it down to 2 pages, you walk into interviews and you want to talk about all your skills and projects that you did that don't even matter to me. So I want you to realize when you get into an interview, you are telling a story for marketability purposes, just like you're doing with your resume. The story is to sell you. It's not to relive your history. It is not even to convey the reality of what you did every minute of every day last year or the prior 10 years. Is this resonating? Do you understand this? Have you ever been just perfect for the role, but you didn't get the job? But I was perfect. I had all the skills they needed. So what? You didn't convince them that what you were going to do with those skills was going to change their life, or at least not in a manner that they could understand. And guess what? It's their job to ask you good questions, to elicit information so that they can draw good conclusions. The problem with the world is most interviewers don't know how to do that. So while it is their job, it becomes your problem because it's up to you, extreme ownership here. You've got to take accountability for making sure that they get to hear what they need to hear so that they could draw a conclusion that's in your favor. That's all I care about. And don't think for 1 second the world is fair or that the most qualified candidate gets the job. It's the person who can tell the best story, who can articulate their fit and value, and show the employer how their lives are going to change. Get this? So how do we do that? How do we do that? So the first thing is I want you to think forward. And I want to give you a running start because I really want to tell you the storytelling formula I want you to use. But the stories you pick make every bit as big a difference as how effectively you tell the story. If you cannot figure out what illustrates your skill set and your marketability and how you're going to help them transform, even if you tell a beautiful story, it won't matter because that story doesn't tell me what I need to know. So it's really important that you think forward, because the first two things that you need to think about are not what questions are they going to ask me, oh dear Lord. Stop thinking about what they're going to ask you. It doesn't matter what they're going to ask you. You need to tell them what they need to know in order to determine how their life is going to change. I don't care if that's what's your greatest strength, what's your greatest weakness. Tell me about a time you failed. Tell me about a time you had a disagreement. Those are nonsense questions. You don't have to prepare for those. You need to figure out what are their goals and what are their problems, and what have I done to help organizations achieve those goals by overcoming the likely problems they have. Get it? When I look at you as a job seeker, I know you want to find a job or a better job or a better career. You all have the same goal. I know that that's simple, but you all have different and unique challenges. Some of you are looking for your first job. You're an emerging professional walking out of school. Others are, well, Andy, I live in the UK and I want to move to the US. You have a geography problem. Others are, well, I'm an engineer and I don't want to be an engineer. I want to be a salesperson. You have a career-changing problem, right? So those are different challenges. It's the same thing with employers. Every marketing department that ever existed wants more prospects. They want them cheaply. They want more prospects cheaply, and they want to convert them at a very high rate so that they can turn into customers. We know this. That's not hard. Now, the company you're interviewing with, if you're a marketing executive, you need to figure out what their struggles are. I coached a woman last night, 4:00 yesterday, and she's interviewing, and she's interviewing right about now with someone about a creative brand director position. And we know what the goal is, but we don't know where the company she's interviewing with, we don't know where they are in the spectrum, what they've tried, what their hurdles are, what they think the solution is, and all that good stuff. This is the stuff you need to be obsessing about before you go into an interview. Not what story am I going to tell about my greatest weakness. It so doesn't matter. So how can you tell what I call a power story? And how could you choose that? You choose it based on the goals they have, which you should know, and the problems they likely have, which you should anticipate. You won't 100% know those, but if you're an experienced operator, you should know what the problems likely are, and you could get in that interview and you can ask them. You can also elicit information from a job description, which will also help you. And I have a webinar that'll help you with how to do this, a job interview playbook webinar, which you can check out. But let's say, for sake of argument, you've got a story you want to tell that's going to greatly illustrate how you have done something in your past that's going to help them with their future. What's the formula that I want you to use? That's what I'm going to take you through, and I'm going to break it all down for you. I call it my CAAR technique, and this is my nomenclature. And as slick as this may sound, I'm sure there are other people who have similar style structures. I'm not, it doesn't matter to me what you want to call it, but I want to explain to you the principles that I think make this effective. There's a context that I want you to open up with. If you're familiar with the STAR technique, the S is what they call a situation, task, action, result. I'm not a huge fan of that formula in its entirety, predominantly because of the connotations of each of the stages. In the STAR technique, the situation itself is usually task-based, and people immediately think, well, the situation was my boss asked me to, build out this program. That's not context. That's what you were asked to do. In my view, context is a business problem. Why does the story matter? Why is it important? And what it also does is it gives you an opportunity to get them excited by explaining to them what the major aspiration was, or what the huge problem was, or context related to all of that. And we'll use some examples here in a minute, but I just want to lay down the structure for you here. Then what I want you to do is I want you to give them a step-by-step outline, singularly identified, without explanation, to show them that there is a sequence of steps that needed to be taken in order for you to solve the problem, build the program, expand the unit, or whatever it was, restructure the organization, go through the M&A, whatever it is. Because what happens is when the listener hears okay, here are the steps. I'm going to take you through a job searching approach where I'm going to help you find yourself. I'm going to teach you how to market yourself. I'm going to teach you how to bring yourself to market. When you bring yourself to market, I'm going to teach you how to interview, and then I'm going to teach you how to negotiate. That's a step-by-step process, but I didn't explain any of that. But what that says to you is, okay, well, if Andy's going to walk me through 5 steps, I know where he is. I know he's got a playbook. People pay more for systems than they do point solutions. And when he's talking, I'm going to know exactly where he is in the story at any moment in time. And I know where the story is going, and it's going to be easier for me to pay attention. And because item number 1, the context was so intriguing, he's captured my attention. And then with the approach that's an outline, it's going to be easier for me to understand where I am in the story. It's much easier as a listener. The next thing you do is I want you to walk through your outline, your approach, or the steps, and I want you to give a little more color. I call this the second part of the approach, but this is kind of like walk you through the details. And then I want you to bookend the result, which you've already either flat out told me was the issue, because I'm going to make an inference that if you're telling me there was a business problem and you're specific about what that problem is, I'm guessing that you're telling me that because you're going to tell me how you solved it. That's what's going to keep my attention. And then toward the end, you're going to reiterate what the number was, what the issue was that you resolved, or any additional benefits that you ultimately achieved. And that's how you tell a story. So what does that actually look like? All right, when you get with the context, remember yesterday when I said if you're going to write a resume bullet, when you write a resume bullet, you need to have it address one of the great 8 opportunities, accomplishments, goals that an employer has. It was generating revenue, increasing market or brand awareness, attracting customers, keeping them happy or servicing them, growing the organization, keeping the employees happy or raising happiness, reducing costs, and process efficiency. When you open up a story, any story, I don't care what the story is, what the question was, you start with one of these. So what does that sound like? Well, I was coaching a CEO, months back. And we were going through some role playing and her interview storytelling. And she was explaining to me that she'd gotten into this organization. And I was asking her, kind of what her major accomplishment was there. And she says, well, I really helped them, create more value and grow their revenue. And I said, okay, but that right there, that's fine, but that doesn't really tell me anything. And I said, well, how much revenue did you help them grow? And she said, well, in the first year, I helped them grow 17 million. That doesn't tell me anything either. It's just a number. Did you go from 183 million to 200 million? Right? That's one thing. Or did you go from 0 to 17 million? That tells me something else. Or did you go from 17 million to 34 million? That might tell me something else. And she said, well, they were about a $50 million company. So I helped them. I put in some programs that helped them grow to 17 million more. That still doesn't tell me the whole story, because 50 million to 67 million sounds like, you had a good year, right? The market could have been kind. Maybe you walked in and the product was hot. So I still don't have the context that I need to understand where the story is going or how awesome she is. Okay. So I asked some more questions. I said, well, what were the 5 years prior like? Like, were they growing? She said, well, no, they were flat. For 5 years, they couldn't grow any revenue. I said, well, that needs to be said, because if they're flat for 5 years and you walked in and you recreated or blew up their strategy and built them a new one that gained 17 million in the first year after they were 0, flatlined for the previous 5, that's what I want to know. Because the problem was systemic for a long time until you entered. So when you tell a story, you're going to say, I was hired. This organization had been stuck on 50 million in revenue for 5 straight years when there was a $2.8 billion market cap for their products. That's how you open up a story. So I came in and I knew there was at least an opportunity to get them 33% better if I did the right things. So I was hired because I have a background in creating value for organizations by redesigning their strategy and commercializing this and that and the other thing. That all takes 10 seconds to say. Do you see the difference in how I immediately reshape the way you think about me? All of a sudden, I'm important. You were able to get in why you were chosen for this activity. I don't care if you've been working at your company 5 years. You were chosen to do something because, and that needs to be inserted because you immediately get to stuff why they need to hire you and what you're going to do for them. And you've just foreshadowed this with exactly what you did. This story takes 3 to 4 minutes to tell, so they're not too long. Trust me, I can say I was brought in as the CEO because this company was struggling with flatline revenue for 5 years. They were at 50 million, and I recognized that there was an opportunity to immediately raise them at least 33% if I was able to redesign that strategy. So they hired me because of my background in seconds. It takes seconds to say. And you set the table. And I guarantee you that once you say that, everything else that they listen to is going to be giving you the benefit of the doubt because you're just now going to start talking about how you did that. And as long as everything you say makes sense, that's it. That's all that matters. This is so important for you to understand. They are not going to remember what you tell them at all. What they're doing is their feelings are on overdrive as you're talking. So now what they're saying is, she must be important. Wow, she must have those skills. And then when you get in and you start talking, what they're thinking is, she sounds organized. She sounds like she knows what she's doing. That's the signal they're sending up here. That's what you're concentrating on. You're not concentrating on giving them chapter and verse of every single thing that you did. Do you understand this? This is the single greatest issue that I have to eradicate when I coach somebody is I have to strip out all the dead weight in their answer to make the thing move. And it all starts with getting off on the right foot to capture their attention because how they listen to you will be totally different. If you start at step 1, they're wondering, where's this going? Why are you doing this? How long is this story going to be? You got me? Okay, so now that's an opener. Then what? Then I want you to take me through an approach. Now, every single approach that any of you do, take what I'm going to give you right now because this is effectively what's going to apply to everything that you do. So, regardless of what your job is, generally speaking, whenever you take on assignment, you do some kind of diagnostic. So the woman I'm talking about, the 17 million increase in revenue, well, the first thing she had to do was look at their strategy, look at their customers, look at their product line, look at the segmentation. And so you just want to be able to say, so the first thing I did was a diagnostic. Then I came up with a new solution and a new strategy or a new approach or a new plan or whatever. Then I had to present that plan because I needed to get it blessed. Why do you want to say these things? What did I just get done saying? What are you sending? Feelings. What kind of feeling does it set when she says, so I had to develop the new strategy and the business case, so I needed to present it to the board? What do they immediately feel? Oh, she obviously must know how to present the business case. She must know how to put it together, and she must be persuasive and influential because she pitched it to them. Do you see the way their mind is moving 4 times faster than you can speak? You need to let their mind run into the places you want it, right? Not into questions. You need them making statements in their mind about you, not, geez, I wonder, well, hang on a second. What? Right? That's what's happening when a lot of people are talking with a lot of detail. So I did an assessment. I created a plan. I presented the case. I got it approved. Then I flushed it out. Then I implemented it. Then I operated it. Then I gathered the data. Then I improved it. Every story that you ever did in your life looks something like this. Every single person I coach, from engineer to new college grad to CEO to CIO to CMO to director of IT. I got a guy at 4 o'clock today. He's an engineering director. This is what we're going to be working on. So what you're doing is you're giving them a list, and this only takes another few seconds to say. You're not even a minute into the story yet. You with me? Remember, you're not explaining these steps. You're telling them, I have these steps. This is my system. So I did an assessment. I created a plan. I needed to present. I created a business case, presented it to the management team. Once they blessed it, I flushed out the plan. I implemented the plan. I operated it, gathered the data, and then iterated. How long did that take me to say? Did anybody put a clock on that? Do you see how fast that is? Do you guys think I'm nuts? I'm telling you, this works. Okay, then what do? Then you go back. Here's the most important thing. Why are your stories so long? Because you want to what? Explain what happened, right? I don't want you to explain what happened. I want you to give them the ingredients so they can do what? Draw a conclusion about what? That you know what to do. So if the CEO candidate said, well, I did a diagnostic, she doesn't have to say, okay, so I got there, I met with everybody, I figured out who I needed to talk to, then I realized if I wanted to develop a good strategy, I was going to need to talk to everybody, hold a requirement session, look at their integrations. No, you don't tell a story that way. You say, so I did a diagnostic. The most important thing about their strategy was I needed to make sure that the strategy was holistic. So I wanted to cover all the groups: sales, operations, engineering, customer service, marketing, blah, blah, blah. So I looked at all the groups. I looked at the product lines. I looked at the customer segmentations. We had customers on 5 continents. I looked at all 5 continents, and I assessed where our products were selling, what the revenue was, and what the profit line was. That's it. On to step 2. So you speak in inventories. This is a big freaking deal because you just want them to know you know what to look at. Remember, this is a successful story. She already told them. I made $17 million. This is really, really a big deal. Inventory it. You only use information that sells you. I had a woman one time we worked, she's in the UK, and she was launching a flapjacks line. The line already existed, but they had 0 customers below 50 years old. So they needed to remarket the package and figure out how to reformulate the packaging of the product line so it would appeal to a different demographic. So we're working through her story. When we get to the assessment phase, she said, well, Andy, I said, well, what data did you gather? And she said, well, I needed these customer insight information, and this customer insight information included blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay. And I said, okay, so we're practicing her story. And she said, well, but there was a team of consultants from Boston Consulting Group that had to spend like a month gathering this data. I'm like, that's dead weight in a story. You don't need to say that. You don't need to say that a whole bunch of people had to run around and gather the data. Just say, we needed to gather the data such as boom, boom, boom. And the reason that was important was so I could see, so I could draw the conclusion, so I can make the recommendation, right? You don't need to explain every bit of the story. And that's what a lot of you do. You do it in your resume and you do it in your storytelling. Got to get out of that. What information tells the story that you need to tell, that markets you best, that explains to them, I would do this for you. What illustrates that? It's for illustrative purposes only, to sell you only. Not to relive reality that they don't care about, nor will they remember. And then the last thing is, then just give them the results. Okay? So what happened was, after I got through and we implemented my plan, in the first year, we were able to generate that $17 million. We had expanded our customer line to include blah, blah, blah. And it positioned us for hypergrowth for the next 3 years, because then we grew by doubling every year for the next 3 years. You with me? Who loves this storytelling formula? Can I get a heart in the chat if you love it? Marilyn Lee, for CAAR, will the answers be too long? No. Need to be 2 to 4 minutes? Yes. How can I be more precise? Do exactly what I said. Sometimes the initial interview is only 30 minutes. The initial interview at 30 minutes is not interested in going into many, many stories. They're interested in saying hello. All right. So wait, now I do want you to drive that home. I do want you to put those hearts in the chat if you use this. And I do want you to go watch the Job Interview Playbook webinar. It's free. Kara, can we drop that in the chat? Let's drop that in the chat. I know I get amped up about interviewing people, but it hurts me when you're so awesome, but you just can't convey your awesomeness in a bite-sized package that sells you best because you want to add all these albatrosses around your neck with dead weight words that don't do anything or paint a colorful picture. So if you want more about why this works, in Interview Intervention, I talk about my original storytelling formula and the areas that it needs to hit. And a big part of being successful is capturing their attention and keeping it, talking in language they understand, showing them the organization to your story. So while this book came out in 2012, so it's a dozen years old, the principles I'm sharing with you today are very much in alignment with what I originally wrote many years ago. And so it's really me trying to, as I've worked with many, many more thousands of people and seen many, many more thousands of interviews and just gotten better at this, I'm trying to give this to you in a packaging that I think you can really understand. And I'm continually trying to formalize it so you can take the crutches that I can give you and just add the meat on the bones. Cool? Cool. All right. So remember, I'll send this to you anywhere in the world, $7 US. Give you the ebook, which is $9 on Amazon. That's kind of a pretty good deal.